What up, mathletes? What's happening? I hope y'all are doing well today. So I'm pretty stoked we're going to talk about dimensional analysis, which is like math dominoes, and really following the rabbit down the rabbit hole. So we're going to follow this rabbit down the rabbit hole. We're going to crush it. But before we start, go ahead and write down dimensional analysis, and above or below dimension, I want you to write just in parentheses unit, because it's also called unit analysis. And then what is that? That is the process of performing operations with units. So go ahead, write that down in your notes. We are going to talk about how to change units. So in other words, what if I wanted to go from, miles per hour to feet per second? What if I wanted to go from ounces into pounds? What if I wanted to change anything for any reason, to convert, if we're going from the metric unit to the standard unit, where we're using meters, kilometers, to going to inches, pounds, and all that. So to do this is a process called unit analysis. And we watched a video last week that showed us because scientists didn't convert the units properly, there was a $100 million mistake where a satellite orbiting around Mars crashed because of that. So units matter. They matter a lot. They matter, hey, if somebody's telling you they're going to pay you 100 what? You'll want to know what units they're using. Are they using dollars, 100,000, 100 pennies, 100 nickels? It matters what the units are. So let's get on with that. Go ahead and get that written down. Pause this if you need to. And let's do this. Gotta get you out of the way. Let's go next. Okay, we're going to start off with, I want to say relatively simple, and yet if you don't know what you're doing, it can be not simple. First of all, I want to talk about the power of 1. Let's talk about the power of 1. So, for example, a number divided by itself equals 1, correct? So this is like a big fat number 1. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. It's powerful that we know this, because when I'm doing unit analysis, I'm essentially going to use the number 1 a lot, but it's not going to look like that. For example, it is true that 1 foot equals 12 inches. That is true. They are the same number. So if I were to say 1 foot divided by 12 inches, guess what? That equals 1. Because 1 foot is 12 inches, and a number divided by itself is equal to 1. Here's something else we need to know of. 1 times anything does not change it. It equals itself. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 6 equals 6. 1 times a fraction, 1 times a half equals a half. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything, and that matters in unit analysis. So we're going to use two concepts that are really just the power of 1. We're going to use that a number divided by itself equals 1, and multiplying by 1 equals itself. Okay? All right, make sure you have this written down. This matters. It's going to be a little bit of a brain bender, but we're going to get there. Are you ready for this? All right, I'm going to erase it because I got to make us some room. Awesome. Let's get those writing tools out again. Okay, so 4,000 yards, I want to convert them to miles. Okay, so if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have 4,000 yards. Got to do this with my mouse. It's going to be a lot of mouse writing today. Over 1. I'm going to do this by multiplying by 1. I want to get rid of yards. Whatever unit you want to get rid of, you always put it on the denominator. Because opposites cancel out, right? Just like if we're cross-canceling when we multiply fractions. But then I want to start by changing this to feet. How many feet are in 1 yard? 3 feet are in 1 yard. And don't forget, a number divided by itself is 1. Even though this is 3, it looks like 3 over 1, it's 3 feet over 1 yard. 3 feet is 1 yard, so this is really the number 1, brought to you by the number 1. So anything times 1 is not going to change. Now let's do what we got to do here. I'm going to cancel yards, cancel yards. I'm going to end up with 4,000 times 3, which equals 12,000. But 12,000 what? That's what matters. Now it's 12,000 feet. 12,000 feet is 4,000 yards. But I need to change this now to miles. So again, I want to get rid of feet. So how do I get rid of feet? By putting it on the denominator. Whatever unit you want to get rid of, you put on the opposite side of the fraction sign. And here's what I do know. Are you ready for this? I want to end up with miles up top. Miles is bigger than feet. Whichever unit is bigger, that's going to get the 1. Yards is bigger than feet, so 1 got the yards down here. But miles is bigger than feet. So 1 mile. How many feet are in a mile? 5,280 feet. So watch. Feet's going to cancel out. When I multiply straight across, I get 12,000 divided by 5,280. And on top, don't forget to put the miles. So let's divide that out. I'm going to use a calculator. You guys are going to be using, I'm going to have you open up to like, well, I mean, you're at home watching this or wherever, so you can use whatever you want. You're in school, you're going to be using your Desmos on the computer. So let's do this. 12,000 divided by 5,280 equals approximately, and it says to the 100th of the mile, by the way. This is to the nearest 100th of a mile. This gives me 2.272, which means we cut it off at the hundredths. The 2 makes the 7 stay the same, so this is going to be 2.72 miles. Boom. Pause it, write that down. That's dimensional analysis. We're going to go to meters after this. Okay, before we go further, I want everybody to take a minute and write these down. It's very important that you know these conversions. These are just basic conversions we're going to get to. I'm going to write them down because I'm going to need them since I'm going to scroll up here in a minute. One I don't know real well is 1 meter equals 1.094 yards. The rest I got down. You've just learned the 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Those are things you just learn going through school. Okay, pause it if you need to, but we're going to grow up here. So now, I want to change meters to miles. So to do so, just looking at this is going to help us. I'm going to need to change meters to yards, yards to feet, and then feet back to miles like we just did. So let's get into this. I'm going to take 200 meters over 1. And as we look down here, we want to change meters to yards. So I want to get rid of meters times, so I'm going to put the meter on bottom. And I know that 1 meter is equal to 1.094 yards. Yards is what I want. Left with this, so I'm going to put the yards up top. Watch these meters cancel out, and I'm going to get left with yards. Now, there's a little shortcut of doing this. Instead of writing so much like we did last time, I'm going to keep going. I know I'm going to want to change my yards to feet, so watch this. I'm going to go, all right. I want to multiply. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's do this like we did last time. We'll shortcut it next time because I want to make sure we get this down. So what does this equal? 200 times 1.094. 200 times 1. That's not a point. 0.094. I get 218.8. 218.8 yards. Okay. I'm going to do that over 1 because what am I going to want to do? I'm going to want to now change yards to feet times. Yards are going to be on bottom, and they're bigger, so I'm going to have 1 yard. Feet's going to be on top. How many feet are in a yard? 3 feet are in a yard. Yards are going to cancel out. I'm going to be left with 3 times that, so times 3. which is going to get me 656.4 feet. Over 1, and now I want to change this to miles. So I know I'm going to multiply this times a fraction that has miles on top, and I need to get rid of feet on bottom. Which one's bigger? Miles is, so we're going to have 1 mile and 5,280 feet. Again, the feet are going to cancel out. I'm going to end up with 656.4 divided by 5,280. And that equals approximately, I should do 0.124 miles, which I'm going to cut off the hundredths. That 4 tells the 2 to stay the same, so it is 0.12 miles. So 200 meters is just a little over a tenth of a mile. Awesome. All right, well, let's keep going. Pause this if you need to. I'm going to erase it. We're going to do our last one. Ooh, kilometers. So if I'm going from kilometers to miles, we're going to do everything we just did here, except we're going to add in one extra step. We got to change kilometers to meters. So let's do this. I have 5 kilometers. All over 1, and I want to change that to meters, so I got to get rid of kilometers on the bottom. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. Boom, those cross out. I get 5,000 meters over 1. What's that going to equal? All right, what are we going to multiply by this time? Not equal. What are we going to multiply by? Well, I need to change meters into feet. Or actually yards, I think it is. Yeah, meters into yards first. So I'm going to change it to yards. I want yards up top. And I want meters on bottom. Don't forget, we learned down below, 1 meter equals 1.094 yards. So 5,123 times 1.094 equals 5,470. So this equals 5,470 what though? Well, the meters canceled out, and I'm left with yards, which is going to be over 1 again. And I want to change yards to feet now. So I'm going to have feet up top. Whatever you want to change to needs to be on the side of where you want to change it. There will be times we have things on the denominator, but we're not there yet. And feet over yards is what I want to cancel out. 1 yard is bigger than 3 feet, or it's the same as 3 feet, but the yard's bigger as a unit. So we give it 1 yard, 3 for the feet. Yards cancel out. Times 3, 16,410 feet. And what do I want to do? Put it over 1. And now last, I want to change it to miles. So I'm going to multiply times a fraction, which is miles. Mi up top. And 1 mile, and over feet, because I want to get rid of the feet. And we know there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So now, my feet cancel out. I'm going to have 16,410 divided by 5,280. Which my calculator says is approximately 3.107. 3.107. Notice I always go out to the thousandth to round to the hundredths properly. Miles, right? We're on the miles now because we're left with miles right there. And that 7 tells that 0 to go up to a 1, so this equals 3.11 miles. Notice a mile is bigger than a kilometer, because 5 kilometers is only just barely over 3 miles. So That is some awesome dimensional analysis. I want to go to a next example now, so pause this if you need to. But let's move on. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to look at a little word problem. It says a recipe calls for 20 fluid ounces of milk. If Nikita buys a half gallon of milk, how many batches of that recipe can she make? 8 fluid ounces is 1 cup. So here's how we would go through this. Move this up. It actually works it out for you. So since it's a half gallon, we're going to use a 0.5 gallon. And now I can change gallons. There's 4 quarts in a gallon. So since I want to get rid of gallons, I'm going to put gallons on the denominator. And just so you know, I like to always write our first one over 1 just to help with spacing. That's how I do it. But anyway, you don't have to. So gallons are going to cross out, and I'm left with 0.5 times 4 quarts, which is, but remember I told you there was a shortcut? So instead of constantly saying it equals, it equals, it equals, let's just realize I now need to cancel quarts, don't I? So I'm going to multiply times 2 pints over 4 quarts because 2 pints equals 4 or equals 1 quart. So now my quarts are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with pints on top, but I don't want to end with pints. I want to get down to cups first. There is 2 cups in 1 pint. So now I cancel out pints and I'm left with cups. See how we've started here? We haven't actually done any of the multiplication, but we're just watching our units change until we get to the right units. And last but not least, it told me that there's 8 fluid ounces in 1 cup was the hint up here. So now I know there's 8 fluid ounces, and the reason why it says fluid ounces instead of just ounces, fluid ounces are different than dry ounces. They're the same weight, but different type of measure. All right, so 8 fluid ounces, that's what we need to stop on, because I was given that I have a half gallon, I need 20 fluid ounces of milk for the recipe, and I want to know how many of those I can make. So since I'm now down to fluid ounces, I know I'm done, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have half times 4 is 2, times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 8 times 8 is 64, and the units I'm left with is fluid ounces. So see how we were able to just get our units worked down to what we want before we ever multiply? That shortens the problem a little bit, and I recommend going this route. So now we're not done, because if I have 64 fluid ounces, I want to know how many of these recipes can I make? Well, then we're going to have 64 fluid ounces times, we know that 1 batch is equal to 20 fluid ounces, right? That there's 20 fluid ounces in 1 batch, so I can do unit analysis again. What happens? We see that the ounces cross out. I'm left with 64 divided by 20, which divided gets 3.2, and 3.2 what? 3.2 batches. Anita has enough to make, and since we can't make part of a batch, she really only has enough to make 3 batches with a little milk left over. That was a good problem. And it shows us really well how to use dimensional analysis. So we're going to be working on this. This is something you do in science a lot, so this really helps you in your science classes. In science, you got to always do dimensional analysis to go between. Okay, now this is going to use dimensional analysis. I want to find out how many inches per second 4 miles per hour is. So now here's the problem. I not only want to change the units in the numerator, I want to change them in the denominator. When you do this, we're going to do it 1 unit at a time. So first things first, I want to change my miles into inches. To do that, I'm going to take miles. Miles is 1,760 yards over 1 mile, because miles is what I want to get rid of, right? And then I now want to get rid of my yards. So I'm going to cancel out yards. What can I change yards to? Well, I know that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. Last thing, I want to get rid of my feet. What do I know? There's 12 inches in 1 foot, because I'm ultimately trying to get to inches. So look at what just happened. I was able to cross out miles. I'm able to cross out yards. I'm able to cross out feet. So I'm only left with inches, which is what we're looking for. So now that we've done that, we need to change hours into seconds. Let's do that. So I'm going to multiply. And since the hour's on bottom, now whatever unit I want to get rid of, I need to put on the numerator. So I'm going to multiply times 1 hour to get rid of the hour. What's in 1 hour? 60 minutes are in 1 hour. And finally, I know that I want to get rid of these minutes. I want to change this minutes into seconds, and in 1 minute there is 60 seconds. So watch what just happened. So let's do this again. I just canceled out miles. We know I canceled out yards. We know I canceled out feet. So I'm left with inches in the numerator, which is what we want. Inches per second. Inches per second looks like this. Inches over seconds. And yes, that's a terrible I. I acknowledge that fully. Last, I now want to get rid of hours and change them to seconds. So I canceled out the hours, right? I canceled out the minutes. And what am I left with in the denominator? I'm left with seconds. And so if we multiply this out, 4 times 1,760 times 3 times 12, what am I going to get? Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and do this math. 4 times 1760 times 3 times 12. I'm going to get 253,440. 253,440. And all divided by, oh, and what am I getting? Inches. So that's inches. So that's how many inches are in 4 miles. That's a lot. But what do I need to divide it by? I need to divide it by, see, 111, and then 60 times 60, which is 3,600. And when you do, and 3,600 seconds, excuse me. And when you do that, what do you get? 70.4 inches per second. It works. See? Boom. You see that? 70.4 inches per second. So, this is dimensional analysis. It takes some getting used to. You're going to have some problems working on this. With that said, peace out.